Hey everybody, welcome to Recovery Alive right here in South Cleveland. Hey, we want to thank you so much for joining us today. We really believe that God right here in South Cleveland is raising hope from the dead. And so this is a safe place where you can do life and you can do recovery, where you can find hope from any hurt, habit, or hang up in your life. So here's what we want you to do. We want you to like this, to share it. Let the whole world know what God is doing to bring freedom in others' lives. We hope today that you experience the love, hope, and freedom of Jesus. God bless.
Hey, y'all. Hey. I am so super stoked to be in Cleveland tonight. This is my second time at this church. I absolutely love it, as well as the people here. Thank you so much for inviting me here to speak. My name is Catrina Cabe, and I'm the founder and director of Cry for the Broken. We do minister to people engaging in addiction-related prostitution. We also minister to people engaging in survival sex, pornography, adult entertainment, and sex trafficking. We minister, I say people, because it's predominantly women, but we also minister to men, trans people, and here lately, by the grace of God, juveniles. We do this because they are our neighbor. They are our neighbor. I love that picture of me, don't y'all? That is so fabulous. But can we put that other picture up there really quick? Is that okay, Ms. Danielle? Thank you. Now, I got 2 rules for tonight, if that's okay, because I'm 45 years old and my stomach's doing something funny. So if I start walking like a duck that way, y'all pray for me and do not look at me in my face. You hear me? I mean it. Vanity is my sin of choice. Don't look me in my face. All right, so this is the reason that I do what I do. This person passed away in 2010, stopped breathing, completely stopped breathing. I want to get a couple of guesses, and you ain't gonna hurt my feelings. I love this girl more than life. But can you tell me what might have happened to her? Anybody? Overdose? Good guess. Any other guesses? Hallelujah. She quit breathing when she went under the water of the baptistry and she rose a new creature in Christ. My heart stopped beating because I received a new heart. I received Christ's heart. You know, I did that. I decided to do it on purpose on an Easter Sunday. 1, because I'm burnt out and I wanted to remember the day that I got baptized. And 2, because I was 33 years old. It took Jesus Christ 33 years to accomplish his work on this earth, and it took me 33 years to get it. So I was 33 years old on an Easter Sunday when me and what would be my future husband decided to go together and be baptized. And one of the best decisions that we ever made was giving our life, the best decision that we ever made was giving our lives to Christ Jesus, and to turn our lives and our will over to him and let him serve through us in whatever way he saw fit. And man, I had no idea the wild stuff that he would have us doing. But we get to do it together, praise God. I'm here to tell you my story tonight, so I'll tell you that I was born the result of a smart-mouthed, red-headed 15-year-old girl at Ringgold High School, and the prettiest little homosexual boy that Ringgold High School has ever been blessed to lay eyes on, and you better believe it. He got scared when Mama got pregnant, and he was a little bit older than her, so he took off to the military. So Mama was left to raise me alone. But one of her other boyfriends showed up at the hospital when I was born on October 30th, and she was watching horror movies. That explains a lot. And she looked at Dwayne and she said, well, what am I going to do now? And he said, well, we're going to get married and we're going to raise this baby up together. And so they did. They got married. And Dwayne was such a good daddy. He was so sweet. He was so big and country, just a big old teddy bear, kind of like my brother Reese over here. And he wore overalls, and we go to my Nana's house, and you know, a lot of kids, they want to get cookies or ice cream or Kool-Aid from Nana's house, but not me. I'm a weirdo. I had to have a can of vegetables. It might have been green beans. It might have been pork and beans. It might have been peas, but whatever it was, when we got back to the trailer, Dwayne would pop it open with a hand rolling can opener. Us over 40 knows what those are. And we'd eat it with a fork straight out the can. And to me, that's just a memory of a good, good father. And I have this other memory of being in the back of an 18-wheeler and looking at this strange man and looking at my mama and saying, I want my daddy. I want my daddy. She said, shut up, that is your daddy. And I knew by the age of 2 when to shut my mouth. Mama called me a good girl because I knew when to shut my mouth. She bragged because she could leave me in a doctor's office waiting room while she went to have her physical done. And when she got back, I'd been good and I played and I knew because I was going to get a tooth knocked out if I didn't. That's what made me such a good girl. I just kind of accepted that Pete Shell was my daddy because the alternative hurt too much. You know how we suppress memories. So I didn't put all this together until much, much later. So I grew up calling Pete Shell daddy. And I thought that man hung the moon. I truly did. They took us to church. Mama was a Sunday school teacher and Daddy played the drums and he cut the grass at the church and he built the front porch on the church and I got to go everywhere with him and he called me Cecil and I was his little sidekick and I knew just as well with him when to shut up. I used to call it an old-fashioned raising. I learned later that it was actually child abuse and I can admit that today and that's all right. The Lord has blessed me with a barren womb. I do not have children. You all are my children now. Congratulations. You can call me mother. That is my preferred pronoun, mother. But seriously, every time I come out, I feel like I get to speak to a room full of babies. Every time I get to walk along somebody off of the streets and into safety, I get to call them my babies. And every time I drop them off on an airplane or in an automobile, I feel like I'm saying, fly, baby bird, fly. And I just cry my eyes out because I'm sappy like that. But yeah, I went to kindergarten, and it was there that I realized that Mama dressed me funny. It was there that I realized that I was poor, because there is this time in a poor child's life that is holy, that is sacred before they go to school, where they don't realize that they're poor, that they just figure everybody else's life is just like theirs. And I assumed that about the abuse. I assumed that about the kerosene heaters. I assumed that about everything in my life. And I realized when I got to school, I was different, and I became very quiet and withdrawn, and I was a very strange kid, and I'd had a lot of cavities, and so all of my front teeth were silver. And I had these big old brown glasses, I'm sure the cheapest one at the eye doctor's office, you know, that Mama could afford for me to wear. And the kids at school, they call me a four-eyed monkey. And then, because it was 1981 and AIDS and HIV were the biggest news story in the entire world, they began calling me a four-eyed monkey with AIDS. And we would play tag on the playground, and if I became it, they'd all scream, "Don't let her touch you, don't let her touch you, you're going to get AIDS, she's nasty." And I just kind of hold my head down. And when I look back at those photos today with the two pigtails, I wish I had sent it to y'all, two pigtails that are braided, a whole grill, a whole silver grill, y'all. And then big old brown glasses, y'all, I was gangster. I'm like, I wouldn't have made fun of me. I'd have been my best friend. I was the cutest thing since Little Debbie. But the kids didn't think so. And as time moved on, I got weirder and weirder because Mama left Daddy. And she got with this other man when I was 7 years old, and his name was Bob, and I hated Bob. Oh, I hated that man from the very beginning. She missed my baton parade to go marry him. I had the little sequins and little fringes and the little baton, and I could chocolate vanilla and all that stuff, and she missed that to go marry him. I hated his guts. And I defied him every chance that I got. I said, "You ain't my daddy, and you can't tell me what to do." I hated him. Oh, how I hated him. Hated him until I was 12 years old when my mama called me in the house. And when she hollered at me to come in the house, I thought for sure I was coming in to get beat, because we didn't have heart-to-hearts. We didn't have cuddle time on the couch. If I got called inside, I pretty much knew what was going down. And I would have no idea what I had done because, see, when I was 7, my mother also picked up a bottle of liquor, and she still hasn't put it down. So some things I would get in trouble for that made sense, and some things I get in trouble for that didn't make sense. And sometimes I'd do things that should have got the blood beat out of me, and it just got looked right over. Made me a weird kid. Made me a really weird kid. I wasn't sure about boundaries or morals or what really should happen or what shouldn't, or how to make friends with people or how to be a part of a social group, because I was to be seen and not heard. That doesn't make well for popularity or affluency. But yeah, she called me in the house and she says, you know, I've been waiting to tell you something, and I had to wait until you were old enough to understand, and I think you're old enough to understand now that Pete Shell is not your daddy. And I'm like, what? She says, your real daddy has just died in a motorcycle accident. And don't look for his family, because they think they're better than us. They don't want nothing to do with you. And so I asked, can I go back outside and play now? Because like I said, we didn't have heart-to-hearts. I knew not to ask any more questions. I had been given the information and told what to do with it, and that was the end of the conversation, and I knew it. And so I went back outside and I sat on my trampoline and I just screamed and hollered and cried at God, and everything made sense. Everything that I had told myself up to this point, I knew for sure at this point was true, that I was different. That there was something wrong with me. There was something about me that just wasn't quite the same as others, that I was a mistake, that I never should have been born. I wasn't supposed to be here. I don't belong. No wonder I feel this way. And then I began to think about daddies, and I began to think about Bob, and I thought, you know, I ain't never give that man a fair shot. And at least he's here. He's a drunk, but he works and he pays the bills, and at least he's here. At least he don't pretend to be something he's not. At least he comes around, much unlike my biological father. At least he ain't a liar like my daddy. Oh, I was mad at daddy. I said, maybe I ought to give him a shot. Maybe I should give him a chance. And if I just work real hard on being a good girl, maybe he could be a good daddy for me and I could have a daddy. And so when I went inside, he was drunk and passed out on the couch, and Mama, she was drunk and she was passed out in the back bedroom, you know, normal Tuesday, 4:00. And I decided I'm going to curl up on the couch next to him, just quiet as a church mouse. And I'm going to see, lasagna. I'm going to see if my heart feels like he could be a daddy to me. I knew what it felt like to curl up next to my daddy from before I was 7 years old. And I thought, if it feels anything like that, then I'm going to start being a good girl and I'm going to let him be a daddy to me. And that's the first time he ever touched me inappropriately. And I screamed and I hollered and I jumped up and I said no, just like I've been taught to in school. And my mama come running down the hallway, what's wrong, what's wrong? I said, Mama, he touched me. And I told her where he touched me, and it was in the worst place for him to touch me. And she said, oh, he was passed out. He probably just thought you were me. And so for the next year, as he groomed me with cigarettes and alcohol and being able to cuss and hiding pink slips from school and keeping me out of trouble with my mama, I never told her again, because the only thing that hurt worse than outrunning that drunk that I thought could be a daddy to me was telling my mama and her not believing me. So after a year of that, I said, why don't you let me go stay with Daddy? See, they had made a pact that they would never tell me that he wasn't my real father. He had gone and sworn that he was my father on my birth certificate when I was like 3, and the judge let him because it was the 80s, and that's just what we did back then. There wasn't any DNA test or anything like that to speak of, and he swore it, and they believed him. So he didn't know that I knew. And I had made the promise to my mama that I wouldn't tell him that I knew. But lo and behold, they had another person staying there at the house, and we had the same birthday, October the 30th, and his name was Anthony, and he was so cute, and I lost my virginity to him just like every other Southern girl I know. And if it wasn't you, then woo-hoo, but it was me. And we got caught. Long story short, my daddy went to hollering and screaming, and he pulled out the shotgun, and Anthony took off running like his behind was on fire, and he starts hollering at me, I didn't teach you to act this way. I didn't raise you to behave this way. Where did you learn this behavior? And I knew the only thing that I could do to save Anthony's life was to just give a revelation. And so I told him everything about Bob, and I also told him, and I know you don't care, you ain't even my real daddy. And I broke that man's heart. I broke it right in two. I regret that. I have very few regrets, but I regret the way I revealed that to my daddy. And he took off with that shotgun towards Georgia from North Carolina to blow Bob's brains out, but he got pulled over by a state trooper, and they sat at a rest stop, and they had a coffee, and they sat there for several hours talking. Daddy decided to drive on back. Mama came down that evening, woke me up about 3 a.m. when she arrived, and sat me in a rocking chair with her, and I still remember the smell of her gorgeous red hair as she lied to me so sweetly that she was going to leave him and that everything was going to be okay. That was the last lie she ever told me that I ever believed. Now then, my mama, or my stepmama, B, she was a Pentecostal holiness woman, which is a beautiful faith. Isn't it gorgeous? So much humility, so much modesty. But unfortunately, Satan takes things that God creates, because that's the only thing he can use, because God literally created everything. So he'll take anything that God creates and he'll pervert it and he'll twist it and he'll manipulate it. And that's what he had done with this woman. And Daddy was a truck driver, so he was on the road, and this woman would cuss me and spit on me and throw holy water on me and speak in tongues over me all at the same time, and it just didn't make any sense. And as I walked down the mile-long dirt driveway to the highway, I was talking to God, and I was saying, I don't know what God she was talking about back there, but that's not the God I remember from Sunday school when I was little. That is not the same one. I know it's not the same one. I remember him. He was kind. He was loving. He let me sing on stage with a microphone, and everybody would clap. And they tell me how pretty I am. I learned to love the stage from a very young age. When I ran away, I had this vision in my mind that some beautiful family in a large brick home was going to see me and say, oh, honey, what's happened to you? And that I'd tell them everything. I'd tell them the whole entire truth, and they'd take me and they'd hide me away. And they'd keep me safe until I turned 18. What I found out instead was that the world is full of child molesters. Back then, I called them boyfriends because they said I was mature for my age. They said I didn't seem like I was just 13. I seemed so much older. And they give me alcohol and they give me cigarettes just like Bob did, and I enjoyed that. And they give me other things, and I enjoyed that as well. And so I engaged in what is called survival sex from the ages of 13 to 18 years old, where I stayed in some hippie's basement with his mama upstairs screaming up, come on up here and get some of this hamburger helper, when she felt like feeding us. Wasn't never no big level drug dealers, real low level, real countrified drug dealers. I never went gang or anything like that. Real poor, just still poor. Poor was my comfort zone. But then when I turned 18, I thought, man, this is cool. I can get a job. I can get a house. I can get a car. I can plant flowers in my yard. I can do all the things that I've always wanted to do but haven't been allowed to because I've been on the run. I'm not running anymore. This is awesome. And so I went to the omelet shop and I got me a job as a waitress, and I'm so bad at it. Because, I mean, from 13 to 18, I've been doing what the heck I wanted to. And from birth until 13, I was, the weirdest kid in the world. Still kind of am. Just do it for Jesus now. And I wasn't making a lot of money. And I had worked for like 2 whole weeks. And I still didn't have a car. And I didn't have a house. And I didn't have nice clothes, and I just didn't understand. I'm like, that's what I see the rest of the world doing. They get a job and they get these things. I just don't why is it not happening for me? But there were these girls who would come in every night, and their hair was so pretty, And oh my gosh, their outfits, they had the tiny little mini skirts and the perfect bodies and the tube tops and the rhinestones and the sequins and the high heels, the real high heels, not the kinds you get at Kmart or Walmart. But I don't know where the heck these heels come from. But boy, I wanted me a pair. But the most alluring thing about them, besides their beauty, was the fact that they come in with hundreds of $1 bills every night. And my boss would keep $100 bills in the safe to cash them in for them because that's what brought them in. They were able to cash in their ones at 3 o'clock in the morning. So after a couple of weeks of working there, I thought if I could do what they're doing, I'd have that house and that car and them clothes in no time. So I slung down my apron in a huge rage of PMS, and I marched my little skinny behind. I was a lot skinnier back then, a lot cuter too. Marched my skinny behind down the hill to the strip club where they worked at, and I sat down and I had me 2 shots of tequila because it's West Virginia and I was 18 and they don't care. And I realized that I had made a humongous mistake. And I looked at the bartender and I said, man, I'm going to have to walk back up there and get my job back. I can't do this. He's like, why not? And I said, well, because I can't dance. I don't know how to dance. Marie saw that just a few minutes ago. I'm over here dancing. And he's like, honey, these men don't care if you're in a wheelchair. As long as you take your clothes off, they'll give you money. And I began making hundreds and hundreds of dollars every night. And I held a petition to open on Sundays because addiction don't sleep. Addiction don't take a day off. And I had to be open on Sundays to make money on Sundays because I had a $400 day minimum that I had to meet. And that wasn't even getting high anymore. That was just to take a shower, brush my teeth, roll my ankles, get them ready for them 12-inch heels and get up on the stage to make the next dollar. That wasn't even having fun anymore. I did that for 7 years in 5 states. And my drug of choice was cancer-grade opiates. That was the big deal back then. If you've seen the docuseries Dope Sick on Hulu, I was in the midst of that in Appalachia. I was in West Virginia when that was happening. I was a huge part of that, and I have the scars to show it. Things got really, really bad. And for 7 years in 5 states, I never had a house, never had a car, lived in a van for a little while, and took great pride in living in that van because punk rock, right? We're talking about where do we find our identity. I found my identity in that. I was hardcore. I was punk rock. I went hard. I did the most. I also have borderline personality disorder, so there's no gray area. I'm either incredible or I'm horrible. There's no in between with me. And I look at you guys the same way. I have to look at you a different way on purpose. I have to intentionally do that because of my mental health. Anyhow, I took great pride in the fact that I never engaged in an act of prostitution in 7 years in 5 states. I felt like I didn't have to. I was an incredible hustler. Addiction makes us incredible hustlers. It makes us incredible liars, incredible manipulators. And, before long, they had me training the other women on how to manipulate because they're like, it's just unreal how you're pulling dollars out of men's pockets that they didn't even know that they had. But that's what we do, right? And if we can't do that, we're going to steal Grandma's microwave and pawn that sucker. But I was doing quite well for myself until a lawyer from Roanoke comes in one night and he says, how much for you for the night? And I said, oh, sir, no, I don't do that. I don't do that. But if that's what you're looking for, I'd be more than glad to get you one of the girls who do. And he says, I don't think you understand what I'm asking you. How much for the night? And I was real dumb. I thought $1,000 was a lot of money. I said $1,000. He said, where are you going to be after work? I said, out in the parking lot doing this. And so that was my first act. And so when the strip club had enough of me and my antics and I was too skinny and broken and bruised to put on a good performance, they picked me up and they threw me out the back door like a bag of garbage. The one that they called the best, the one that they had training the other dancers, they picked her up and slung her out like a bag of trash. And I had to have $400. Had to have it. Just to make it through the day, I had to have it. So what else was I supposed to do? I ain't no good at stealing. I'm too nervous. I'm not scared to be up here, but I'm shaking right now. I'm just full of nerves. I'm a ball of nerves all the time. I can't do it. I ain't got time for it. It takes too long. You got to find somebody to take that crap back. Then you got to split half of the money with them. That don't sound like a good deal to me. You know, prostitution's so much faster and more efficient. And I'm always about working smart, not hard. And so I got my first prostitution charge in West Virginia, and it scared me to death. They put me in this little Andy Griffith jail, and I cried, and I wailed, and I screamed, and I hollered so hard. The sheriff himself come back there and said, "Girl, if you'll just hush your mouth, I'll let you out and let you sit in this chair." And he did. He let me sit in the chair. He was so sweet to me. Men have always been so sweet to me. One of my favorite lines from my favorite movie, A Streetcar Named Desire, is, "I've always depended on the kindness of strangers." Still kind of do, but in a different way. Scared to death, so I come home, cleaned up, married the first idiot that would put a ring on my finger. That marriage lasted for 10 months, and he beat my brains out. He beat me so bad that to this day, even before I wore prescription glasses again, I wore fake glasses, because every time I blink, the left side of my face twitches, and I can't stand it, because as I said, vanity is my sin of choice. And I'm going to leave it there. I ain't going to have it fixed, because that's the thorn in my side that I probably need. I wouldn't leave him, because I said, I'm not going to be like my mama. I'm not going to be married 4 times. I want to honor God, and I don't know why, because I was smoking meth, but I want to honor God, and I'm going to stay married to this one man, and somehow I'm going to make it work. And I might still be with him if he hadn't raped my 8-year-old cousin while I was drunk and passed out in the bedroom just like my mama. Going through that trial was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, because they kept putting it off and kept putting it off, and I knew that I was going to have to see that man face to face again, the one that had beaten me so hard, the one who had done such unspeakable things to a child, that I was going to have to face him and say what I had seen and what I hadn't and what I'd heard and what I hadn't, and I was horrified. And this friend from high school come over, and she said, "I've got some crack. If you'll let me smoke it here, I'll smoke it with you." And I'm like, "I'll do anything to make me feel better." And you know, I'm the type of person that I've got a million things going on in my head at all times, just around and around and around in circles. And I took a hit of that particular drug, and only one thing was on my mind, and it was such a relief. One more hit. One more. How do I get another one? All the other stuff faded away. And so for the next 5 years, that's what I did. And for the next 5 years, I caught 22 criminal charges. I went from 1 to 22. In 5 years. I was in and out of jail so much, y'all, it was insane. But things began to change. When you saw that picture of me before, I looked like that. I had 13 spots of MRSA on my body, staph infection. I should be dead. It don't make any sense. As much dope as I shot, I should be dead. It don't make any sense. But here I am. And I was dressed in rags, and I've been wearing them for days, because I would tear at my clothes when I would stay awake for too long. And I didn't have any shoes on my feet, because I kicked them off somewhere, because that's what I did when I stay awake for too long. And I've been kicked out of every trap house on the Willis Street side and the Ross Boulevard side. And it's hard to get kicked out of a trap house when you got money in your hand, but my money was no good anymore. They'd had enough of me, and I've been raped, and I have been beaten, and I have been dumped out in the middle of nowhere, and I have been robbed, and I have been perked, and I've been tricked, and I've been lied to, and everything horrible back to back to back to back to back to back had happened over that week or two. And I remember these church ladies as I approached the overpass right there at Dodds and 23rd in Chattanooga, in the rain and the snow and the sleet and the slurry. And I remembered how they said, "You just stomp your feet and you say, 'Satan, get thee behind me.'" They'd said that when I was in church at jail. And so I did, because I had been telling people, "He is on me. He is following me. Don't come near me. He's going to get on you too." And so I stomped my feet and I said, "Satan, get thee behind me." And I heard a laugh in a voice just as clear as mine that said, "I ain't following you. You're following me." And I was horrified. I was horrified because even though I walked the streets and I sold my body and I did my drugs, in between I talked to God the entire way. Lord, please keep me safe while I get in this car. Lord, please let the dope man be home. God, let it be some good crack this time. Lord, if you'll just send somebody with some food, I'm so hungry. Just talking to God all the time. One time I prayed for panties and got them. It was the wildest thing ever. That's a long story and I don't want to take up too much time. But I began screaming at God because I felt like I had been betrayed. Like here I am praying sometimes for one of these tricks to kill me so I could just go on to heaven because I believe in God, so I'm going to heaven. But here I was following the enemy. Why haven't you told me? I started screaming, how could you let me live this way? How long before you rescue me? How long do I have to live this way? How long are you going to leave me out here like this? And this beautiful woman steps out of nowhere right there at 23rd and Kelly, and she didn't have no business out in this weather. She took me by my shoulders and she shook me and she said, he is sick of your promises and he is tired of your lies and he just wants you to come home. It shut my mouth. There ain't a whole lot that could do that, except maybe some macaroni and cheese and a strong word. It shut my mouth. And she took me across the street and she bought me something to eat. And she said, you have one more promise to make and break to him and he's going to let you die out here. And so for the next few times I went to jail, and yes, I went to jail a few times after that because I am hard-headed. You would think that such a holy thing would make me fall to my knees and give my life to the Lord, and that would have been the end of that story, but not this crackhead. I just figured I'd do it without making any promises with God, and that way I'd stay alive because I ain't going to die as long as I don't lie to him. Woohoo, that's my ticket out. I'm fixing to get high. And so every time I went to jail, I didn't say, oh, Lord, if you'll just send that man to make my bond, I'll make an honest man out of him and we'll get married and I'll get barefoot and have his babies and we'll take them to church. I didn't tell any of them lies anymore. I just sat quietly and I did my time. And then I got my HIV diagnosis. And I was really relieved when I got my HIV diagnosis because I said, this is the thing that will keep me from going back out and selling my body. This may be the very thing that saves my life. But then I got out of jail. And I said, well, if I tell them I've got it and they want to do it anyway, then it's not really a big deal, is it? So I caught my first felony prostitution doing that. And I went on to jail and I did 6 months. I was out for 21 days when the undercover officer picked me up and I told him that I was HIV positive on the way to the hotel and caught my second felony charge. And so I knew that I was going to prison. Because every good jailhouse lawyer knows on your second felony, when you bound it over, you're going to go upstate. You're going to go to Memphis or Nashville and you're going to lay down for a minute. So I was ready to do that. I was. And I thought, this is amazing because I miss talking to God. I was afraid to talk to him because I was afraid that I may inadvertently lie to him and then I was going to die. And it don't make any sense to pray to die and pray not to die at the same time. But what does make sense when you're smoking crack? So I said, I can finally afford to make a promise to God. Lord, I'm going to be the best prisoner that prison has ever seen. I'm going to follow every rule. I'm going to join every program. I'm going to participate in every service. I'm going to serve in every way I possibly can. And all that I ask of you in return is that you relieve me of the overwhelming desire to use drugs when I get out. And so I began training while I was in Silverdale because it takes 6 to 7 months for Troopville's to come back and to be sent upstate. So I'm in boot camp. I'm in Jesus boot camp. See, I call Silverdale Bible College. I don't call it jail. I've been to Bible college about 22 times. And I began doing things like teaching classes back in the dorm, having prayer circles back in the dorm, baptizing inmates in the shower who were going to federal prison and afraid that they would never get the opportunity. So I did it with a gel coffee cup out of the shower water, and we just did the best that we could with it. I began tutoring in the education classes. I didn't know I was smart because nobody had ever told me, but I guess God knew, and I had signed up to do everything. So I signed up to do that and found out I was pretty good at it. I got my GD when I was 18 because I had a stupid boyfriend told me I was too dumb to do it, and I was going to do it or die then. I began doing all these things. I wrote a play about HIV so that I could change the culture and perspective around HIV and AIDS in Silverdale Detention Facility, and it has to this very day. I go there every Monday and I teach a class called 12 Steps to Recovery, and it's Christ-based. And to this day, the perspective of HIV has changed because, see, they called me that girl with AIDS. They called me that walking dead. They called me that diseased, disgusting, AIDS-infested crack whore. And I remember standing up and finding my voice one day and saying, I want to laugh. I like to laugh. I want to know what's so funny. I want to know what's so hilarious about the fact that I'm going to eventually die a devastating, disgusting, stinking, painful, lengthy death. Tell me. I like to laugh. Shut the whole dorm down. You could have heard a pin drop. And I was like, holy crap, I didn't know I could do that. And then I wrote the play, and it changed the perspective. So I'm doing all this stuff, training, boot camp. And it comes time to go to court because my true bills come back. So I'm ready because I heard they got a salad bar at the prison. I heard they serve real beef at the prison, not this ostrich or whatever the heck we're eating at Silverdale, like a possum. I don't know what it was, but I like to eat. And so I was ready to go. I had trained to go. I was prepared to go. Let's go be the best prisoner Nashville's ever seen in their whole entire lives. And I get up that elevator. You might know the one, that metallic elevator with the spit and the snot and God knows what else caked up on the metal walls where you stand in the middle and kind of don't touch nothing and hope nothing touches you. And the doors open and my court-appointed lawyer is standing there and he says, the DA doesn't think that you need to go to prison. The DA says that you're getting out today, that you're going to drug court. And he shut my mouth like macaroni and cheese. And I couldn't say nothing. And those elevator doors shut. And I said, no. I said, God, you've got to get me back up there. You got to get me back up there, and you've got to let me tell that judge that he can't let me out today, that he could send me to prison today, but he can't let me out today because I made a promise to you. I made a deal with you and I can't break it, Lord. Don't take away my safe place. Don't take away my prison. See, we serve an upside down kingdom. He will have you begging to go to prison instead of breathing free air because he's just that freaking weird. And he spoke to me in that filthy elevator and he says, hush, child. Do your very best at each task that I set before you and I'll take care of the rest. I said, okay, all right. But my faith still wasn't that strong because I squalled like a baby when they called bed and baggage. And the girls were going, what is wrong with you? You're getting out? And I'm like, I don't want to leave. I don't want to go. I was safe there. There were no drugs there. There were no men there. It was so easy there to serve God. It was so simple to serve God amongst women. I was so afraid to leave, but I did. And I began doing my very best at each task that he set before me. And I got a list of things I'm going to pull out of my pocket that I'm going to share with y'all. That he restored to me. My grandmother and my family. Right before I got married in 2013, I finally found my grandmother on Facebook, and I stalked her and I called her and I had to leave her a voicemail, and I said, hey, you don't know me, but I think I might be your granddaughter. And then I put a ringtone on my phone specifically for her number because I'm a drama queen. I'm like my gay daddy. That said, dun, 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 dun. Because I was just waiting on her to call me back. And I'm in the shower and I hear dun, 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 dun. And I'm screaming at my soon-to-be husband, answer the phone, answer the phone. And I cut the shower off and I'm talking to her and I instantly fall in love with this woman. And everything about me when I met her and my family soon thereafter, just days thereafter, everything about me made sense. My brilliance, my wit, my ability to survive, my beauty, my mannerisms, everything made sense. I was no longer different. I was just like them, y'all. They are so bougie. I come from a long line of real estate agents, and they live in Franklin, Tennessee. So I went up there and I caught COVID. I didn't get the same COVID y'all got. I got the COVID that Faith Hill and Tim McGraw had. Just need y'all to know that. I had bougie COVID. They're wonderful. Today's my grandmother's birthday. I was going to see if y'all do me a favor really, really fast, if I can pull it up. I'm going to count to 3, and if y'all could say happy birthday, Charlene, can you do that for me? 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much. I'll send that to her afterward. I talk to her every day. I call her and I say, hey, beautiful. And she'll say, hey, beautiful. And it's just wonderful. I do holidays with them, everything with them. I could just, she is so much better than y'all's grandma. She really is. We can fight about it later. Another thing that he restored to me, and the verse that I'm using here is, for I will restore the years that the locust has eaten. You'll have to Google where that is, because I went to Bible college 22 times, but I'm not sure the book and the number. But I will restore unto you the years that the locust has eaten. He has given me so many mamas all over the church. One of them sits right there. And I just love her to pieces. We can fight about that later too. I can't fight, honestly. All I can do is run my mouth. Please don't hit me. Another thing that he has restored to me is being friends with girls. I had no idea how to be friends with girls. I went to my counselor to find out how, and she taught me to offer pedicures because I was painting my toenails all pretty and doing designs and stuff. And so that's how I began relationships with other women on the outside. And today, like, oh my gosh, girls are everything. Like, I don't wear this lipstick or this outfit or these bougie earrings for guys to look at me. I'm wearing it for you girls. Just so you know, no offense, fellas, but it's for the ladies. Another thing that he gave me, see, he is such a good father. He loves to give good gifts, and he has this perfect plan for your life, but he's not going to allow you to imagine what it might be because he cannot wait to surprise you. One of my cousins married the brother of the guys from For King and Country. And so I have had the privilege of working on 2 music videos with him and being backstage with him and being out to 210 Jack with him and hanging out with the boys. We call them the boys because there's a lot of small bones. And so I could just imagine God sitting in heaven just rubbing his hands together going, man, I can't wait to see her face when she finds this out. It is right up my alley. Another thing he's restored to me is travel. Since I've gotten sober, and I'm not bragging on material things here, don't get me wrong, because what the Lord revealed to me was that salvation was not just for eternity after death. It was for life right here, life more abundant. I've been to Mexico, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Italy, Yellowstone. I'm about to go to Scotland in April. He gave me that house. He didn't give it to me. We had to pay for it. But it's the cutest little thing, and I planted flowers in my yard, and it's 1,000 square feet, so it's not big and luxurious, but it's big and luxurious for me. Clothes. Them clothes I wanted, Lord of mercy, I got 3 closets full of them. I've had to purge it so many times to quit holding on to it, to make clothing my identity. It's insane. He's given me a church. He led me to my church. And sometimes I think I don't belong here. I'm pretty sure I'm Episcopalian. But I still go because that's where he put me. He gave me a ministry. Did y'all see that mugshot I showed you? She wasn't supposed to have those things. He gave me a college education. Not just that, but I won awards. I wound up teaching most of those classes. I just left a symposium at Cleveland State Tuesday because I still go back to the college. He gave me that drop-in center. The very first one in the state of Tennessee, and I'll say that forever because vanity is my sin of choice. And I will holler that till the day I die. I was first. He gave me my health. I am healthy as an ox. He gave me my marriage, which is something that the enemy used my voice to say I would never have. He gave me this confidence, y'all. He gave me this confidence. I know who I am. You can read it in Ephesians if you want to find out who I am and who you are as well. And I believe it for all of us because I believe that I am who he says I am. He gave me my talent. and they are many. I do all sorts of things. He gave me my intelligence, my beauty, and my wit. I'm funny. I'm a triple threat. I'm smart, pretty, and funny. And he's about to give me a pardon from the state of Tennessee for that singular felony that I was found guilty of. I went before the Board of Pardon and Parole and got a unanimous positive recommendation to Governor Lee. So I'm going to ask one more favor of you guys tonight when you get home. If you will Google contact Governor Bill Lee, there's a contact form. If you could write to him, all you have to write is please pardon Catrina Cabe. It won't let you write but 500 letters. Write anything you want about me to him. If you didn't like me, tell him don't pardon me, but tell him the truth when you talk to him. In closing, I've pulled a verse. This is really heavy because it's from Revelations. A lot of people think that means the end, but it don't. It means apocalypse. Lots of people think that means the end, but it don't. What it means is the beginning. What it means is he's about to show you what it's all about. What it means is all things will be revealed. And in Revelation 5:8, it says, and when he had taken it, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb. Each one had a harp, and they were holding golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of God's people. In the Old Testament, the altar was meant to bring your sin offering. It was meant to bring your dove or your lamb or whatever it was that your sin required. We no longer have to bring the farm animals in the church. That's why it smells so good in here. But we can still bring our sin to the altar. We can still bring our woes and our troubles to the altar. And it's a beautiful, beautiful smell to God. And during the end of time, that sacrifice will be in His breath. And I ask you to bring the one who gave you breath, His breath, to the altar this evening. Bring it on up here, folks, whatever it might be, whatever little thing. If you're struggling with language like me, if you're struggling with vanity like me, if you're struggling with putting your identity in anything other than who Jesus Christ says you are, bring it to the altar and lay it down. Leave it here, my loves, because you are altogether wonderful, altogether beautiful, and altogether restored in Jesus' name.
Hey, everybody. Wow. What a wonderful service, right? Hey, we just want to thank you again for joining us today here at Recovery Alive at South. Can we tonight just end in the serenity prayer, shall we? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as the pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, but trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Hey guys, we love you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please check us out next week. We'd love to see you there. God bless.